Straight Talk Sales and Marketing Podcast, episode number 5. Welcome to Straight Talk Sales and Marketing with Janet Clark. Are you ready for more sales, more clients, and more cash flow? This podcast brings you direct, honest conversations with sales and marketing masters each week. Now here is your host, Sales and Marketing Master, Janet Clark.
Hello and welcome to Straight Talk Sales and Marketing. I am your host, Janet Clark, and I am here to talk to you today about the best way to do follow-up so you can increase your sales. So if you are an entrepreneur and you are looking for more clients, you are in the right place. So my guest today is Doug Brown. And let me tell you a little bit about Doug. Hi, Doug.
Hi, Janet. Thanks for having me on.
Well, we're happy to have you here. So Doug has led award-winning and high-performance teams throughout his career. And he started working for his family business at the age of 3, which I find that really hard to believe. But knowing Doug, he always tells the truth. So, okay, 3 years old. And he has gone on to found 33 companies. Through his personal experience and his studies, he has developed a unique methodology for increasing revenues, and it is transferable to any company. So Doug also was employed by multi-million-dollar companies, and he earned top sales professional awards throughout his career. And eventually he would go on to create and build his own businesses, including a telecommunications consulting company. We have that in our background in common. A real estate investment firm, and an SEO venture. He's also been in the entertainment business, the auto body business, and landscaping. And a few other things that are quite amazing, like fishing, lobster, and some multi-level marketing. So regardless of what your business is, Doug probably has some experience in it. So as an independent division head, he has created training programs, and he has presented high-impact, results-oriented seminars for prospects for both Tony Robbins, Chet Holmes, and he's been able to increase sales by 864%. I think you might want him on your team, and 62% in just 6 months. So I really want to introduce you to Doug and let him kind of tell you what he's doing now, because you can tell from the background that I just gave you that he has a lot of experience. So, Doug, tell us what your latest projects are.
Well, I have 2 of them that I'm working on right now, and thank you, Janet. I have a cloud-based automated follow-up system that we have developed. It's called salesfollowup123.com, and that's due to release in the next 60 days. And then I'm also helping other clients. Right now I'm working with a great company called Intuit. It's Mr. Russ Whitney, and I'm helping him develop out his training and his sales. And fantastic product. So if anybody's interested in developing their life to the next level, removing emotional blocks, and building out their lives to the next level, great content, great material, great people, and it works. Everybody I've seen go through the process. It works great. And those are the 2 current projects that I'm working on. I have some other clients as well, but those are the 2 biggies right now, my cloud-based software and the Intuit product.
Yeah, so I got to know Doug actually through the Intuit, which is a book that is out that everybody should read. It's awesome. That really talks about, it really relates to entrepreneurs who have a calling and are looking to make that their business or their livelihood. And, so it's great that Doug is consulting with this kind of company, because it really is sort of what I consider the new age of entrepreneurship, where we're working from something within us that is meaningful to contribute. But there's always, for every business person, the need to be able to put systems in place to be able to sell and to actually bring on clients. So that's really what I asked Doug to come on and talk to you about today, is this approach that he has that has been helped him to create these companies and successfully build them out. And it really is his ability to be on the cutting edge of sales. So, Doug, why don't you tell us a little bit about how you actually got into sales and where you got your background in your training?
Well, I was originally trusted to sell my family business. I didn't realize, but I did begin working at the age of 3, which was quite a long time ago now. And we began working in my father's business, and I think out of necessity, not really a well-planned, formed out methodology, if you will, that we would just like, hey, go talk to clients, go talk to customers, go up to the front of the counter where they came in and sell them something. So, at the age of 3, age of 4, age of 5, children are natural sales people anyways. And so I just learned some sales chops on the floor at that time, and I developed them up. And so as I started growing, I looked at different business ideas, and I always looked at something and I said, well, can I serve someone else by achieving the solution to this problem? And the answer was yes. Well, then we have to be able to sell it. So I would begin these businesses early on in my life, and then I'd have to go out and sell. So if I wanted to make money, I'd go out and sell. So, years old, I made a 25 cents per week, which was great on. I was the most, my friends loved me at that moment because candy was only pennies. And, as I started growing older, I started developing different types of businesses. And I think I saw some of this within the entrepreneurial setting that my family had set out. But I was thrust into it, and then I really didn't study formalized sales until I started getting into my late teens, actually, and then realized, oh my gosh, there's ways of putting formats and processes and systems around everything in communication, not only just sales, which communication is sales. So
what I love about what you said about kids, right, is that there is no fear of rejection, right? So kids are just used to failing and getting up and walking on, and they don't take much too seriously. So, as we mature into our adulthood, we become a little bit, hurt or something over the years. And so then we start taking it personally when we run into these little typical obstacles that we're going to run into in the sales process. So I think that if we could kind of go back to our mentality of being children, some of the things that we have going for us are our resilience and our agility. Well, if I can't get it this way, I'll try to get it this way, which kind of leads into this whole concept of following up.
Right. Yeah, I mean, anyone who has children around them, or if they're a parent, if the child can't get the answer yes in one capacity, they'll go to the other caretaker and they'll ask the same question, maybe phrased a different way. Now, that would be considered somewhat manipulative sales. But, and as we grow a little older, we realize that sales really is the most serving thing on the planet, and it's a win-win if it's done correctly. But children, they don't think about that because they're looking at something, I want this, I want to achieve this, and I think it's good for me. And many times I find children think it's good for the other person as well, so they're just naturally going to not take that rejection. Now, as we grow older, we get human training, and that human training, through parents and teachers and brothers and mothers, they're told no. So, if they're told, hey, children are to be seen but not heard or something like that, or don't interrupt people, and that reinforcement is over and over and over again. They develop these behavioral patterns which turn into expectations that, well, I'm not supposed to interrupt somebody. So then when they go into a sales, say, job, or they want to sell something, to pick up a phone and make a cold call, well, now we're interrupting someone. So if they've been taught not to do that throughout their life, they'll avoid those type of behaviors that actually lead them to success.
Yeah, so I know you coach salespeople all the time and, work with people in these companies that you go into to help with sales. What do you feel is the thing that really hangs up most salespeople, or where they kind of get stopped short?
I think most people get stopped short with their own internal belief system. And I think the second part where they get stopped short is they don't really have the sales skills. I mean, if you think about it, anybody who ever went to school, went through grammar school or high school or even college, most places, they don't teach sales. In fact, some people, they grow up with hearing that salespeople are these snake oil people, where they're going to manipulate and twist to make a sale. And I don't teach that, because that's not what builds long-term relationships. And sales is all about building lifetime relationships if possible. So I think their personal belief systems hold them up. And, some people are taught, many people are taught that, if somebody doesn't accept somebody, that's failure. And let's face it, nobody really likes failure, or very few people like failure. So they don't want to keep reinforcing these feelings of failure again and again and again and again and again. But when we reframe that process and they understand that they're not rejecting just them, but actually what they may be offering, then they're not getting those inward feelings that, they're the problem. And that's really the belief system, I think, is the number one. Number two is the actual skill sets. And then I think number three is they don't really have a system on and around how to do sales. So they're just reacting through the process. And there's a very logical flow to sales that when somebody understands the systems, that they can take step by step by step. And part of that is including follow-up. I mean, follow-up is supposed to happen not only after the sale, but right from the initial contact. But people don't have a system for it. So those things, I think, are the big one.
Yeah, so one of the things that I've come to realize too, with so many entrepreneurs who are selling their high-end programs, it requires a certain level of what you just said, relationship building, and it is a consultative sales process. So that's kind of what I want to talk to you about today, is that process of how to build that rapport when it's not going to happen in one call, more than likely. So most often when you're selling a high-end solution, there is that factor of getting people to know, like, and trust you. And, we talk a little bit about how we can do some of that with our online marketing and some videos and educating our clients in that respect, which is where I can help people with those kind of systems. But when it really comes down to that conversation and getting people engaged, that's what I think I'd love to have you talk to us about right now.
So the first step to understand in rapport is that we're always dealing with another human being. And what I've found through tens of thousands of trainings that I've done, or some that I've even attended, is that people forget. I ask people the question, I say, who are you dealing with? Who are you selling to? And inevitably they come back and they say, well, I'm dealing with the CEO or the CFO or the director of marketing. And I keep asking the question again and again. I say, no, who are you selling to? And they keep repeating that same statement again and again and again. I said, what are those people? And it stops them, and they have to think about it. I said, do those people have feelings? Do those things that you're talking to, do they have desires and wants and needs and fears? And then it hits them. Oh yeah, I'm dealing with a person, right? So the first step in building rapport is to recognize that we're dealing with another human being that has needs, wants, desires, and fears, and all kinds of emotions that are going on inside them, and to understand how do we help that person win within the position that they're in today. So, people talk about rapport as like, trust, and respect, and as you just said, it's exactly what it is. But to understand like, trust, and respect, that all comes the initial conversation, but it has to continue through time. And so, that the more you spend with someone, quality that's providing value in their life, they're going to build in that rapport. And those relationships, your client is a lifetime relationship, amazing things for the salesperson and vice versa. And it's supposed to be a two-way street.
Yeah. Hey, Doug, your mic just cut out a little bit. Do you have a headset there by any chance?
I do. Would you like me to put one in?
Yeah, I just don't want to take a chance that important things are going to get cut out. We're always at the mercy of this technology that we're using. We love Google Hangouts, but we are at the mercy of our internet connection.
Okay.
I think that might help on the microphone piece of it.
Might look a little funny, but...
Well, you look like a radio personality, and that's just fine.
Well, I did have a DJ company, so...
See? What didn't you have? Okay, we know we're going to deal with people, and we know that we need to see them as such, and that there's a way that you create that rapport. And I love that. Of course, because I have my ebook, Sell from the Heart, it's all about making that connection with people at that level.
Right.
So now, once you do create that, where does this follow-up techniques that you feel, because I know you and I have had these conversations before about how there's a certain number of contacts that we really, or touch points that we need to have with someone before they really do build that trust with us.
Right. So, the average sale happens, the statistics that you read and leave, but when we look at it statistically, the average sale happens between the 5th and 12th contact. So on someone that we don't know. Now, there are certain statistics, Chet Holmes put out a book called The Ultimate Sales Machine, 8.4 contacts, different systems, whether it's guerrilla marketing or whoever's statistics we want to look at. But what I found is between the 5th and 12th contact, generally the sale will happen. The challenge for most salespeople is they don't follow up. 50% of salespeople don't follow up one time. So on the average, about 13% of salespeople follow up 3 times or more. So when it comes down to it, about 87+% of people are not following up more than 4 times. And when the sale is going to happen in the 5th to 12th contact, well, they'll never get the sale. So that is one of the reasons that follow-up is so important. Another reason that follow-up is so important to build rapport is because we're dealing with other human beings. So if somebody's and want to sell, don't they right from the beginning? Services do. So if they are not being followed up with, then the message really comes down to is, I'm trying to sell you something, but I don't care. Right? So, and I've done this in many scenarios where we just follow up again and again and again in a very respectful way, educating people, staying in touch with them. And we're not even the most qualified product or service offer at that point, but what we are we're the best friends. And, let's face it, people like to buy from people that they would like to get to know, more so than from a perfect stranger. So follow-up is really, when it comes down to it, is a common courtesy, and it is a rapport-building machine. And what it also does is people, on post-sale or throughout the sale, it opens up other opportunities, because if you follow up the structure properly, it will then open up other discussions and conversations that would come down the line, and referrals, for example, that never would have happened in the past, just because one cares so much. What will happen is referrals will be sparked out of that just because somebody says, you know what, they took care of me, I know they'll take care of that other person, so I'll be happy to refer that person to you. In fact, Janet, you referred someone to me, based on our... I thank you.
Yeah, and I think that's a startling statistic, and even though I've heard it before, and I guess I know it in my part of my brain, it does feel like that's a lot of times that we have to keep connecting with that person to really build up that level of trust.
Right. Yeah, and it can be. And the thing is that what is the client worth, right? So if we're selling something that is, $2, we don't want to spend $5 trying to acquire something that's $2. But if we're selling something of any type of value or any type $500 to $500,000. Well, doesn't it make sense to stay in touch? I mean, so follow-up, by the way, doesn't have to cost much. Most people just don't have a automated, proactive system on and around follow-up, and that's why we built out salesfollowup123.com, because I recognized in the market that people were dropping sales left and right. In fact, I'll give you an example. I talked to a real estate agent, and we did a couple of calculations, and on how many people she's not following up with. And she stopped and she said, oh my gosh, I'm losing $300,000 plus per year in income, not sales, income. She was $1 million earner, but she's dropping 30% plus of her income out of the funnel, where she could have just had somebody else doing the sales for her and picked up money. I talked with a loan officer at a bank, and in about 5 minutes, we figured out that they were missing over $250 million in loans off their team just on follow-up. Because what happens, the loans come in, they process the things that are, seem to be important for the day, and they forget about the other clients. So we looked at their close rate and looked at what they were dropping, and it was over a quarter billion dollars a year in that case. So it's rampant, right?
So let's get real here, right? So why does it happen? And I mean, I already know this is a rhetorical question because I know it happens to me, right? Because we're entrepreneurs. We are trying to build businesses. We are trying to deliver, and we are trying to sell our services. So there's this crunch of, prioritizing and time management and everything else. So you, I know, have worked on solutions to help entrepreneurs like me and our listeners to make sure that we don't let these follow-up things go through the cracks. So talk a little bit about that.
Okay. So it seemed like we had a little breakup. What you're asking is, how do people actually follow up in an easy capacity and not lose some of the sales?
Yeah, the systems that you have created so that becomes a priority, and it's in people's space that they need to do it.
Right. Well, number one, salesfollowup123.com. It's a program that I designed and we're implementing. So what it does is it takes all of the automation processes and puts everything into a system. The number one reason people don't follow up is because they know it's important, but they focus on the urgent. And so what happens is the important that's not urgent, it doesn't get the attention because they're following up, let's say, or they're selling to 5 people today, and tomorrow it's 10 people, and then the following day it's 12 people, and then it's 20 people. So following up, it's hard if you don't have a system. So it gets deprioritized, and that's why people don't do it. Now, it can be a very simple system. I've taught people just to do this on paper, right, where they can take it and they can put it on paper. We use a calendar, and it says, okay, today we're going to follow up with these people in this method. And then tomorrow we're going to follow up with these people in this method, and we rotate the process through. Now, that's a bit cumbersome, but it does work. And especially on your top clients, if you're going after larger sales, follow-up especially is so important in these larger sales. So I have clients that are, selling $25,000 to, $200,000 clients. And if they're not following up with these people, well, somebody who's going to spend $200,000, they're generally not following up with the salesperson because they're so busy, they're on to other things. So what we did is we teach them to take their top 50, in some cases their top 25, and we massively follow up on those on a paper system. When I developed the sales follow-up 123 system with my team, we took it so that you could follow up with any client. So via email, via video, via offline letters, via postcards, any methodology that you can think of, telephone follow-up, we incorporated into the system, and we allowed it to be not only automated, but something really important on all follow-up is it has to be human-to-human connection. So the challenge with a lot of services that I saw out there is, you could send email follow-ups, but I would get some emails sometimes that would go, hey, first name, right? And right there's a rapport break.
Yeah.
So what we did is we made sure that that wouldn't happen. And so as simple as sending a card once a month can be one method of follow-up. So if you had 50 people that you needed to follow up with, just one. No. But just the fact that that was sent out, and people don't send letters very often anymore, just the fact that that gets sent out, people will open it. Postcards are another way, if you want to do offline. Email. You name it. I mean, anything can be wrapped into a follow-up piece, but the key is having a system around it and staying consistent. And that's where people drop the ball, because they just have too many things to do on their own.
Yeah, well, I can certainly relate to that. And, and I know that there are a lot of different, systems out there for CRM, and probably anybody who's been in sales in the past already is aware of that. Those people who are just getting into sales and just starting to have to sell their products and services consultatively, may need some education on what is a CRM system. And, and what makes what you're doing, like, why did you feel there was a need to create something new? Where do other CRM systems fall short? Because they obviously, if they worked like a charm, everybody would be using them, but we tend to find them cumbersome. So, are you doing something different?
Yes. So CRM, for those who don't know, it stands for Customer Relationship Management. And primarily, it is a tool that most people used as a software product early on. Now it's a software, but most of them are in the cloud. So you can have them what they call server-based on your own computer, or now in the cloud where you can access it from anywhere in the world. And the challenge with CRM systems in general are they're data-centric. Now what that means is that people put data into the systems, and then management just kind of looks at the data and they manage from the data. Now the challenge with that is adaptability, people actually using the systems, because the nature of a salesperson is, I have to sell something. I'm not going to sit there all day and put information into a system because it doesn't value me. I don't get any return on my investment in time. So what we did is we looked at it and we said, how do we make it sales-centric? How do we take it, high-producing salespeople or people who just want to produce moderate levels, and how do we give them an edge to get them to make a little bit more or a lot more money just in making it automated so that they can see there's an automated proactive system that actually helps them close business. And the reason that this all came about, based on what you asked me, Janet, was when I was doing a lot of business trainings, and I was doing, my whole team was doing 42 business trainings a week, we would see what was stopping businesses from growing. And one of the number one core things that stop businesses from growing is communication with their clients. Because if they get, maybe you've done this, I certainly know some of your listeners have done this, they go to a networking event, they collect, let's say, 60 business cards or 100 business cards, they come back with the greatest intent to want to call those cards. Then they get back to their office, and what do you think the average person out of 100 cards, how many do you think they actually get in contact?
Yeah, probably one, if that.
And what really stimulated this whole process is I had a client that I was coaching, and he went to a trade show. And he came back from the trade show, and I said, how many people did you get at the trade show? And he said, well, we got about 70 cards from the trade show. And I said, okay, when did you contact them? And he said, well, we're going to do that next week. And I said to him, didn't you just attend the show 3 days ago? And he said, yeah, that's right. I said, would you do me a favor? He said, what? I said, would you hang up the phone right now and just call every one of those on this list? Every one of the cards. And he said, well, I just don't have time to do that right now. I said, send an email then. Have your assistant just send out an email on your behalf. He said, well, to get you off my back, I'll do it. So he sent out 70 emails, and he called me back about 3 hours later, and he said, I just got 3 sales. And I said, well, what were they worth? He said, $25,000 per sale. So, then he said, well, what should I do? I said, why don't you send out a card? And so he sent out cards to everybody, And he picked up another 17 sales out of the cards. And then he said, well, what should I do? I said, you haven't called them yet. Why don't you call them? Well, long story short, this turned into, high six figures in revenue for him that was just sitting there that would have died. Because time kills deals. Time kills relationships. And so what we did is that stimulated my initial thought and said, okay, we need to create something that follow-up will be the main thing for all of these folks. And that's exactly what we did. But before I did that, I actually went out and surveyed, over 1,000 businesses and said, look, this is what we're trying to do. Do you think it would work? Would you purchase it? Would you purchase it with this kind of investment? And, out of the 1,100, 1,098 of them said yes, and 2 said no. So I thought those were pretty good odds. So that's why we went forward and created this.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's great. So, you and I had a conversation the other day, and I think this would be really relevant to a lot of the people that are listening here who do have email lists and who are doing email marketing campaigns in some respect. And it may just be sending out blogs or sending out, some sort of a newsletter or whatever.
Right.
But when I was talking to you about something that I had done, which was sending out a little bit of a heads up to people about a new program that I had created, and we were talking about it, and I said, well, of this email that I sent out, 300 people opened this email. And, to me, I was trying to figure out, did I get a good open rate, whatever. And you kind of brought that to a different level. Like, the percent of open rate wasn't really the issue here. The issue was, what was I going to do about these 300 people that did open the email? So could you share a little bit about that? Because I would bet that if I was missing that part of the strategy, that a lot of people out there are also missing this part of the strategy.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair. And this happens a lot, and this is why I was able to spot it within what you were doing. It's not that people don't care. It's just that people, especially in the internet, when people are doing things over the internet, they think, well, I only should follow up through internet method. I should follow up via email, or I should, post it on my blog, and that's a decent way of doing it. Again, go back to rule number 1. We are dealing with another human being, right? And some human beings learn different than others. There are some people who are very visual. There are some people who are, like to hear. And there are some people that they need to have more of a touchy-feely kinesthetic sense. And so when people get an open rate, they go, well, I get an open rate. That's good. I had X amount of people. What I was interested in is, what can we do to develop that relationship with those people that opened up your email because they saw a title or they looked at or read something in there that got them to open it up and to begin to interact. So now the next level is, how do we get them to interact deeper, right? And so what most people do is they look at the open rate, they go, X amount of people opened it up. Okay, that's good. By industry standards, I got a good open rate, or I got a poor open rate, or something like that. What I want is interaction rate. Because I've seen people literally who had 1,000 people on their list who are making over, multiple 7 figures out of a very small list. And the way they do that is through that interaction. So in your case, that's what we did, right? And then we sent something back out to that list, and what we did is we segmented part of that list. We said, okay, these people opened it. When these people, did this action, now we have a follow-up action for that particular action. And if somebody did that action, we have a different follow-up for that particular action, and that yields results.
Yeah, and so it was interesting to not focus so much on who didn't open it, but to start going back to, okay, who did, and how do I reach out to these people at another level, and working through, even if it is just to send them another email to say, well, you opened this email, so tell me what it is about it that was interesting to you. Or, continually inviting these people to get on a phone call. Or if we have their phone number, even better yet, actually picking up the phone and calling them, which I thought was brilliant suggestion.
Well, thank you. And that's the thing. I mean, people have these relationships that are sitting there. And, you asked, in sales what stops people sometimes, and we talked about their belief level. Well, some people would think, hey, I got these phone numbers here, but I don't want to call them and interrupt them, or I don't want to call them and get rejected. And what I have found that most of the time when people just take the proactive action and they're very respectful about it, people actually want to hear from people, right? Especially because most people aren't talking to them. So if people are using email marketing, and studies clearly show if you do online and offline marketing efforts together, it heightens the close rate. So one of the ways of doing an offline method is pick up the phone and call them. And you'd be surprised at how much money might be sitting there that they want to spend, but no one actually called them, developed a relationship of a deeper proportion other than an email. And when we're dealing with human beings who have feelings, desires, and wants, and they can't express through an email, I'm fearful of this, I have a spouse that if I end up spending money on an offer that came through an email, I've done 30 different tries before, and even though this one is probably the one that would work, I don't know how to build that relationship and tell that person I'm afraid. So what happens is they just don't buy. When somebody picks up the phone and they say, you know what, I've done 30 offers before, let's say in the internet marketing space, people have tried a lot of offers. I've done 30 offers. What makes this different? Then you get the opportunity to really explain and build a relationship. And that's what brings sales to the next level.
Yeah. And I think what happens to a lot of people is there's a lot of hype online, right? So when a lot of these people are coming on and talking about their multi-six-figure businesses or their seven-figure businesses, and all they did was, promote their book on Facebook or whatever. But what they don't tell you is that what they really did was cultivate leads through the internet and then literally get on a phone call to close high-end sales.
Right.
And I think it's an illusion or a disillusion or whatever you want to call it, that it's possible to be closing high-end coaching sales or even any kind of consulting high-end without building rapport one-on-one with that client.
Right. Yeah. It's highly unlikely that it'll ever happen. I suspect I've never had a client who's actually bought big jumbo jets, but I highly suspect that many a jumbo jet has never been sold over an email solely. Right?
Yeah.
So, and when it comes to coaching, depending on what someone considers to be a high-end coaching client, if they're selling something that's $10, $20, $30, $40, $50, $100,000, $200,000 coaching sales, I've not known too many people that can do it without having some interaction human to human. I'm sure there's someone who has, but the higher probability in that close is developing their relationship with another human being. And that is why follow-up is so key. And what we built into our system was all kinds of multi-methodology, because sometimes, if people are just sending the same medium, like just email, people become kind of desensitized to that process. So if all of a sudden somebody receives a phone call out of the blue, even if it was something that was pre-recorded, and they said, hi, I'm sending you a pre-recorded message, Janet, because frankly, I'm in a lot of meetings today, but you're so important to me, I needed to get this message to you, and I'm sending this to you. Would you be willing to schedule a time with me coming up? And here's a link to my schedule or something of that nature, which I use a link to my schedule a lot. And then people appreciate the fact that you remembered them as long as it's pre-framed the right way. And that's why we humanize the whole process in follow-up piece. Because I was talking to a lady who actually had a friend who was a realtor, and she was very upset because she received something that had a big bold logo from the company, and she knew it was being sent to her and a group of people all at one time. And she literally got very, very upset, and she said, "How dare my friend send me such an impersonal, thing? I would never buy something off of her." And I say, "Well, how long have you known her?" "Oh, it's been 37 years, but if she can't send me something, personalized, I don't want to be on one of those lists."
Yeah.
So again, we're dealing with human beings who have feelings and wants, desires, all of that type of thing. But
so
amazing.
What I love about this is that, through my company, The Freedom Shift, I'm all about helping my clients to create these systems and pull together all of these different aspects of technology to make the system. And so that's, you get that and you're doing it, and I love that. And then there's the part that I'm such a big advocate of, and why I do this Straight Talk Sales and Marketing is that there's such a connection that we have to make with individual people to really, so selling goes so much beyond just convincing somebody to buy something. It's really serving a need that they have. So I love that you represent both aspects of what I truly believe also.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. And you do a great job at connecting on a human level and bringing technology together, with that human level as well. And, that's exactly what we have done on our side. And it's so important to remember that technology is just a tool. But, people have been communicating for a long time through spoken word and through feelings and connections. And as long as we can bring that technological bond together in that capacity, or anyone, they're going to sell a lot more. And, keep following up, because, many a deal in life that doesn't happen today, but does happen a year from now. And unfortunately, people don't follow up with people, so they don't get the deal. It's that simple.
Yeah. Well, I thank you so much, Doug Brown, for joining us today. And on our show notes page at www.straighttalksalesandmarketing.com, you can get Doug's contact information, as well as I hope you will go and download, if you haven't already, the copy of my ebook, which is Sell from the Heart. And this is Janet Clark here with Straight Talk Sales and Marketing, and we will be back with you again next week. So don't forget to join us. Thanks so much for listening. Bye-bye, everybody. Thank you, Doug.
You're welcome, Janet. Thank you.
And thank you for tuning in to this episode of the podcast. Now you are ready to go out there with some follow-up techniques that are going to drastically boost your sales. Now you're ready to go out and actually make the most of every single contact that you come encounter with. So our big question, what did you get from this podcast? What are some of your specific takeaways that you can go and put into action right now? Go to straighttalksalesandmarketing.com/005 for episode number 5 and let us know what your big takeaway was in the comment there. And also, while you're listening to this podcast, be sure that you actually subscribe on iTunes, because that will help make sure that each and every single episode is delivered right to your phone, delivered right to you, and you don't miss a single one, because we're putting out multiple ones here these first few weeks. So go to straighttalksalesandmarketing.com/podcast and you can sign up there. Just click the little subscribe button and you'll be subscribed on iTunes. And also, we, for a short period of time here, are doing a podcast launch giveaway contest. So if you want to sign up for that contest, simply go to straighttalksalesandmarketing.com/podcast launch. So now it's all in your hands. It's up to you. Are you ready to go take action on what you've learned here in this episode? It's time for you to go take action and make your shift to financial freedom today.